Welcome, dear listener. As you settle into your comfortable space tonight, allow your body to release the weight of the day. Feel yourself sinking gently into the softness beneath you. Take a slow, deep breath in and exhale completely. And again, breathing in tranquility and breathing out any lingering tension. With each breath, you're drifting closer to that peaceful place between wakefulness and dreams. My voice will accompany you there, a gentle guide as we journey together through this moonlit tale. There's nothing you need to do now but listen and relax. In a small cottage nestled at the edge of an ancient forest, where the boundary between the mundane world and the realm of myths grew thin as gossamer, lived a woman named Ilara. Her home was a haven of quiet comforts, walls lined with books whose spines had softened with love and use, windows draped with curtains that filtered the sunlight into honey-gold streams, and a garden where herbs and flowers mingled in fragrant conversation. On this particular evening, Ilara moved unhurriedly through her familiar rituals. She brewed chamomile tea in a blue ceramic pot that had belonged to her grandmother, the steam rising in delicate spirals that carried the scent of summer meadows. The wooden floorboards creaked beneath her bare feet, a homely music that had become the heartbeat of her solitary life. Outside, twilight was slowly transforming the world, painting the sky in watercolor washes of lavender and rose that deepened moment by moment into indigo. Ilara carried her tea to the window seat, a cushioned nook where she had spent countless hours watching the seasons change their dress. She settled into its embrace, drawing her knees up beneath the soft folds of her linen nightgown. The warmth of the teacup seeped into her palms as she gazed out at the garden where evening primroses were just beginning to unfurl their pale petals, responding to the gentle call of approaching night. Tonight was special, the summer solstice, when the veil between worlds grew thinnest, when stories told in whispers might be heard by more ears than just human ones. It was also the night of the full moon, a rare alignment that her grandmother had called the storyteller's moon. On such nights, her grandmother had said, even the oldest tales might reveal new endings. As if summoned by this thought, the moon began to rise above the distant hills, enormous, luminous, casting a silver path across the garden. Ilara watched as familiar shapes were transformed by its light. The gnarled apple tree became a sentinel draped in pearl. The stone path glimmered like a river of stars. The roses hung their heavy heads, their colors muted to shades of silver and shadow. Ilara sipped her tea, feeling its warmth travel through her body in gentle waves. There was a peculiar stillness to the air, as if the world were holding its breath in anticipation. Even the night birds had fallen silent, their songs replaced by the soft symphony of cricket song and the whisper of leaves, stirred by the gentlest of breezes. It was then that she noticed the book on the windowsill, a slender volume bound in faded blue leather that she was certain had not been there earlier. Its presence should have alarmed her, perhaps, this unexplained appearance. Yet something about the way it caught the moonlight, the silver embossing on its spine that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly, filled her not with fear, but with a quiet curiosity. With unhurried movements, Ilara set down her teacup and reached for the book. It felt warm beneath her fingers, as if it had been resting in sunlight rather than moonlight. The cover bore no title, only an intricate silver design that resembled a labyrinth or perhaps a constellation. It was difficult to determine which, as the pattern seemed to rearrange itself when she tried to trace it with her gaze. She opened the book carefully, its spine making a soft, sighing sound, like a sleeper disturbed by a gentle touch. The pages within were the color of cream, their edges uneven in the way of hand-cut paper, and there, written in flowing script that shimmered with an inner light, was a single line, asterisk, on nights when the moon is full and listening, Selene sometimes shares her secrets with those who remember how to hear them. Asterisk, Ilara read the words aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. The sound seemed to linger in the air, resonating like the tone of a crystal bell. Outside, the moonlight intensified, pouring through the window in a concentrated stream that illuminated the page with an almost otherworldly radiance. As she watched, more words began to appear on the page, flowing across the paper as if an invisible hand were writing them in that moment. Asterisk, I, who have watched over your world since before your ancestors learned to speak my name, have witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the birth of mountains, the death of seas. I have been worshipped and forgotten, loved and feared, understood and misunderstood. But always I have continued my journey across your skies, faithful as the tide that answers my call. Asterisk, Ilara's breath caught in her throat. These were not the words of a story about Selene, the ancient goddess of the moon. These were words that claimed to be from Selene herself. A chill that was not unpleasant traced its way along Ilara's spine as she continued to read. Asterisk, tonight, as your world balances between seasons, as light and darkness stand in perfect equilibrium, I offer you a gift, a memory from the beginning of things, when the boundaries between divine and mortal, between waking and dreaming, were as fluid as water and as clear as air. Asterisk, the words continued to appear, and as Ilara read them, something extraordinary began to happen. The room around her seemed to fade, not disappearing entirely, but becoming transparent, as if reality had turned to glass. Through this translucent veil, she could see her cottage, her garden, the forest beyond, but overlaid upon this familiar landscape was something else, a world bathed in silver light, where the trees were taller and more ancient, where flowers bloomed that had no names in any human language, where the very air seemed to shimmer with awareness. And there, walking along a path that both was and wasn't the one in Ilara's garden, came a woman. Or perhaps woman was too limiting a word for this being who moved with the fluid grace of moonlight on water. Her hair flowed around her like a living cloak, sometimes silver, sometimes the deep blue of the night sky, scattered with stars. Her face was both young and ancient, beautiful in a way that transcended conventional understanding of the word. She wore robes that seemed woven from moonbeams, and around her neck hung a crescent pendant that glowed with its own inner light. Selene, there could be no mistaking her. The moon goddess paused in her walking and turned toward Ilara, though the window and walls of the cottage should have blocked her view. Her eyes, when they met Ilara's, were like pools of liquid silver, depthless and knowing. Child of Earth, she said, her voice entering Ilara's mind without disturbing the silence. Of the night, few remember to look up at me with wonder anymore. Fewer still understand that I am more than rock and reflected light. But you have kept the old ways alive in your heart, even when you thought you were only cherishing stories. Elara found herself nodding, though she hadn't consciously decided to respond. It was true. Throughout her life, she had felt a connection to the moon that went beyond aesthetic appreciation. On nights when sleep eluded her, she would often sit by this very window, drawing comfort from the moon's serene presence, sometimes even speaking to it as if it could hear her confidences. "I have always heard you," Selene said, answering the unspoken thought, "just as I have heard all who turn their faces to my light in their moments of joy and sorrow. This is my gift and my burden, to witness, to remember, to hold space for the stories of your kind." The goddess moved closer, and as she did, the overlaid world became more substantial, the ordinary reality of Ilara's cottage receding further. The scent of night-blooming flowers, jasmine and evening primrose, moonflower and night-scented stock filled the air with a perfume so sweet it brought tears to Ilara's eyes. "Tonight," Selene continued, "I offer you rest, not the shallow sleep that leaves you still weary, but the deep, renewing rest that comes from knowing you are held in the great cycle of things. Let go of your worries about tomorrow. Release your regrets about yesterday. Be here, now, in this moment where time moves differently." As she spoke, Selene raised her hand in a gentle gesture. Silver light spilled from her fingertips, drifting toward Elara like luminous snow. Where it touched her eyelids, her shoulders, her hands still holding the mysterious book, Lara felt a profound relaxation spreading through her body, as if every cell were sighing in relief. "Sleep now," Selene murmured, her voice growing distant as Ilara's eyes grew heavy. "Sleep and remember that you are never truly alone, even in your darkest nights. I am always above." Ilara's eyes closed, the book slipping from her fingers to rest in her lap. The last thing she was aware of was the sensation of being gently lifted and carried, as if by moonbeams themselves, to her bed. There, surrounded by the silver blue light that poured through her window, she drifted into the deepest, most peaceful sleep she had known in years. When morning came, soft and golden, Ilara awoke with the lingering sense of having traveled a great distance in her dreams. The details were already fading like mist under the sun's warm touch, but the feeling of peace remained. She stretched beneath her quilt, noticing how rested her body felt, how quiet her mind. On her bedside table sat a small object that caught the morning light, a crescent-shaped pendant on a silver chain, exactly like the one Selene had worn in what Ilara now believed must have been a particularly vivid dream. Beside it lay a note written in flowing script, asterisk, "For nights when you need to remember that you are never alone. Whisper my name and I will listen." Asterisk. Ilara smiled, touching the pendant with gentle fingers. Whether last night's experience had been dream or visitation no longer seemed important. The peace it had brought her was real. The connection she felt to the rhythms of the moon and stars was real. And sometimes, she thought as she slipped the chain around her neck, that was enough to know that we are part of something larger than ourselves, held in a story that began long before us and will continue long after. Outside her window, the morning birds began their chorus, welcoming the new day. Ilara rose to meet it, carrying within her the moonlit peace of Selene's gift, a tranquility that would remain, like a secret shared between old friends. Through all her days and nights to come, asterisk, and now, Dear listener, as our story comes to its gentle close, allow yourself to drift with Alara into that peaceful sleep. Feel the watchful, benevolent presence of the moon embracing you, cradling you in silver light. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go. Simply breathe and rest, and know that you are held in the great cycle of things, perfectly where you belong. Good night.